All right, in this episode of the Raj and Drew Entrepreneur Show, we're talking about the 5 fundamental habits for change leadership. I asked Raj some of my questions based on an article that he wrote about change, and you are going to want to see this. Check it out right now. All right, Raj, I was reading your article on the 5 fundamental habits for change leadership, and I wanted to ask you some questions about it. I wanted you to share what these fundamental habits are for change leadership. We discussed them briefly when we in our podcast on change, and we'll have the link for that below. But I really wanted us to do a deep dive of what these fundamentals are, and then I had some questions about them. So the first fundamental is continuous and never-ending improvement. And you talk about continually learn, unlearn, and then relearn. So as a small business leader, how do I know when it is time to change? How do I know when it's time to make a move? Maybe I've tried something out. How do I know when it's time to change? Because many times you're out there on your own. You don't have a board. You don't have a huge group that you're talking to. You're out there feeling like you're just having to make all the decisions yourself. How do you come to those conclusions? How do you counsel your clients?
See, the first question is always taking some time to reflect on what you're doing.
Okay.
And let me explain that with an example.
Yeah, please.
So let's say you are a startup company with 10 employees.
Okay.
So there, everything is around you.
Mm-hmm.
You as the entrepreneur, because you are the subject matter expert, you have the passion of the business. That's why you started it.
Yeah.
Whoever you have hired, they might not have the same passion or the skill. You hire them because of their fit.
Mm-hmm.
And they work with you very well. That's why you bought. And since you have the expertise, you taught them.
Yeah.
And that goes on very well. But now when you are 20 employees or 25 employees, you go back and look at it. If you're still continuing the same way, you don't have time to teach 25 people.
Yeah.
You don't have the time to go back and do the things when you were 5 employees or 10 employees. So what happens is the first indication is you're overworking yourself. If you look at entrepreneurs, there are a lot of people who are putting on 15, 20 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a first sign. So anytime you are a little bit tired, you're overworking yourself, you're spending a lot of time where you need not be spending. These are some of the signs or the symptoms, I would say. These are not the root causes, the symptoms.
Yeah.
I want to be there. As soon as you smell or see or hear a symptom, you want to reflect and take some time out of it.
Okay. And that's kind of why am I doing what I'm doing
Exactly.
right now? Okay.
And then that is when they go back and say, you know what? When I was 10 employees, this was my strength. This was my core competency that helped me to grow.
Yeah.
But when I'm 30 employees, I cannot do that. You have to develop that competency with somebody else, and you are only sharing best practices. Yeah. So if I was selling 40% of my time, now I'm only selling it for 4% of the time.
Gotcha.
And I'm getting somebody
like key
else.
Clients.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'll always have your key clients. You will need to be there. But a lot of the business will be coming through other people.
Mm-hmm.
So your expertise and stuff is, instead of doing it, you are more of a teacher, and that is the unlearning and relearning.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a person, they're just kind of cap out and I don't want to say necessarily that they couldn't grow their capacity, but maybe they just don't want to grow their capacity. They like where they're at, and they say this is their spot. Can you kind of just coast at, hey, I have 30 employees, I do what I do, I'm going to coast for the next 10 years until I sell or I retire? Have you seen that work? Or
I mean, if you are in a niche, serving a very niche market,
okay,
and it is not big enough that somebody wants to enter, then you're okay.
Okay.
But if you look at before year 2000,
mm-hmm.
that might have been possible. I know there were businesses, something like that, which one of the parents started a company, and for 30 years, they were less than $1 million. Because it was the mother who started, and she didn't want to expand because she really wanted to be a mother at the same time.
Yeah.
But after 30 years, the son took over the business. And guess what? A 1 million business in the next 10 years became $20 million business.
Wow.
So they had the potential, but the mother decided to do that.
She put a cap on it because she had other priorities.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So it is possible, but if I fast forward and try to do it now, it might be very difficult because of the technology, the internet, and everything else. Somebody or the other might just sneak into that and give you trouble.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why the word change or die, I'm so fascinated with the word change or die.
Yeah.
Because if I don't change, somebody will take over.
Yeah.
Because there is a need in the market, and it is like water. If you are not serving, somebody else comes and takes over.
Yeah. Well, and our customers don't owe us anything.
No,
You
yes,
know, our clients, we owe them to show up and be better than we were the day before, and to deliver a value, exceed expectations, and compete for their business every single time that we interact with them. And I
yes.
think that's very important to have that mindset that we're always competing for that business. Now, when it comes to, this is totally off topic, but we've had this conversation many times. Can you share off the top of your head? I know I'm putting you on the spot, about the research. I don't remember the name of it, but the scale of 1 to 10. If people are in a 9 to 10, they will they'll share with friends about you.
Oh, yeah.
And if
So
they're 7 to 8, they're looking for others. Kind of give an overview of that when it relates to business, because I think this is important. Bringing it kind of full circle, we've got to continue to change, evolve, get better, exceed expectations, or this may happen.
to ask your question, I'm going to give you a little bit of the scientific research behind that
Please,
piece of
yeah.
it. So one of the question you were saying is, Raj, when do I know, right?
Yeah,
As a business, we need to constantly get feedback from our customers.
that's good.
And that feedback can be different forms. But one of the things that was been very, very famous since 2005 was by a guy named Reichard. He was with Bain and Harvard University professor. They
Okay.
did work together. And it is called NPS, Net Promoter Score.
Net Promoter Score. Yes.
So that was one of the great ways, quick, easy, 30-second, one question, two questions, surveys can be done. But
Yeah.
you learn a lot from that. So that is where you go back and look at it. You have anywhere from 0 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody has given you a 9 or a 10, those are classified as your promoters.
Okay.
So a promoter is somebody who is very, very happy with your product or service, and he's going and telling at least another 4 to 6 people that.
And what is the question on a 0 to 10? Is it, are you willing to share about us with others? Is that the question?
See, the most important question, or something on this similar lines,
Yeah.
is how willing are you to recommend Raj for this service?
Gotcha.
To your friends.
How willing are you to recommend my services or my product to someone else? Okay.
Exactly.
So that's the question. And I was reading some information on this. I mean, companies like Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A does have like a 1 or 2 or 3 question survey. It's very short.
Exactly.
And
whenever you see a 1 or 2 question survey,
yeah.
that is NPS.
Okay.
And by the way, this was only started until 2005. They never had it.
2005. Okay, great.
So basically, when I was in GE, we were one of the biggest pilot projects for Dr. Reichard.
Okay.
And stuff. And I was fortunate enough to be in this initiative for 18 months.
Oh, wow.
So I learned it from the gurus and everything else. And the financial benefit was so huge. A lot of people don't understand that, but I have seen significant, because as soon as we learned that somebody was unhappy, we went back and said, why?
Yeah.
And we could fix them right away.
Well, and unhappy is 7 or 8, right?
No. 7 or 8 is situational.
Situational.
So
explain that.
They are buying with you, they stay with you until a new alternate comes and they're ready to jump.
So they got a wandering eye.
Exactly.
They're looking for a better horizons. Okay. So we've got 9 to 10. They're with you. They love it. 7 or 8. If something better comes along, if they get an email, if they get another friend that recommends another service, they're going to jump on it.
Exactly.
And it sounds like they're not necessarily recommending you.
They're neutral.
Not actively. Yeah. Okay.
So no active, no passive. They're just saying, you know what, I'll go with the flow until I find an alternate.
Okay. So then the 5 and 6.
0 to 6.
0 to 6. Okay.
And these are the people, they're very unhappy with you.
Mm-hmm.
And not only they're very unhappy with you, they're going back and talking to at least 8 to 10 others and saying bad-mouthing your company.
Wow. That's not good.
That's not good. So that is the 3 categories.
Yeah.
So you got the promoters, you got the detractors, and you got the neutral people.
Yeah.
And that is how the survey is designed. Is they ask you one question, and this one first question, and you get a score somewhere from 0 to 9, right?
Yeah.
So anybody who has given anything from 0 to 6, a question pops up. Because now we want to know why they're dissatisfied.
Yeah.
And we want to be very specific in 1 or 2 things. So what we do is we ask the question and say, what are the 1 or 2 things that we need to change immediately to go back and make you happy? Simple.
So it's trying to dig right into a
Right.
solution right away.
So they at least go back and what happens? 1 or 2 top of the mind issues of the customers, it is mentioned there. That's all. 2 questions. And the next person who is a 7 or an 8, what the question they pops up is, what are the one or two things that we need to change immediately so that you can give us a 9 or a 10?
Yeah.
So what is that? You're pretty close to being a promoter for me. What are the one or two things are missing? Why are you looking at it differently?
Yeah.
And that will go back and say, you know what, this kind of a crowd, they're happy, but they're not delighted. So we need to do this, this, and this, and they'll be delighted to give us a 9 or 10.
I love this. So I know we're going to put this on YouTube. So how many of you would say you're a 9 or 10 on this episode or on this podcast that we're doing? Would you be willing to share with your friends what we're doing? Subscribe, like the channel, share it with a friend. How many of you are 7 or 8? You're kind of, this is okay for now, but if another podcast comes along, let us know. And then if you're in that 0 to 6, please let us know why you're not connecting with the information, or maybe it's not relevant to you. Please let us know, because we want to bring relevant information to you. I mean, I always tell from a customer service perspective with some of the managers, if they're having to deal with a customer that's upset, ask the question, how can I make this right?
Exactly.
How can I, it's one of those questions where you're putting the power and the control in the hand of the customer. And, if it's a reasonable response, a reasonable ask, then you do it, and you have the authority to do it. So,
and not only that, even if you cannot solve it, make them feel like their frustration has been heard. That is the biggest piece.
That's powerful. That's powerful right there. Making sure they're heard. Now, from jumping all the way back to continue to learn, unlearn, and relearn, this gives you, even having the score in that way, it gives you the information on where we need to learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Exactly.
Hey, maybe we thought we had customer service down, but we need to fix this. Maybe we thought that our process was perfect and it communicated very clearly, but this person says they didn't know when their package was going to arrive and it was stolen off their porch. Whatever the case is, there was a lack of information, and we dropped the ball somewhere. We need to get better in this. Okay, that's just number one of these fundamental.
But I want to answer. I want to give one more example from an entrepreneur perspective.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm in the services business.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest questions, so I'm proud to say, my first customer when I started the business, whom I got on my first day, I got a new customer.
Nice.
And guess what? They're my customer even today.
That's fantastic. 15 years later.
15 years later.
Fantastic.
So they go through a lot of growth. And I have gone good growth. And every time they have a situation, I bought a solution and we work together. So that way, I have over 20 clients who have been with me for at least 5 years or greater.
That's fantastic.
So that's
the really powerful.
And this continuously learn, unlearn, and relearn, that is where I have learned. Because every single time, remember I was talking to you about looking at 3 years in advance of a strategy?
Yeah.
I'm looking at my customers and saying, where are they going and what would they be needing?
That's what I was going to ask you next is, hey, what if you're only getting positive feedback? How do you continue to learn and unlearn when everything's going great? And you're saying, I have that learner's mindset of I'm going to continue to educate myself. I'm going to look at what's going on in the market. I'm going to be an expert in my industry, and I'm going to exceed expectations. I'm going to give them, whether they know it or not that they want this, I'm going to give them what I know they want and just continue to build on that. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I have been looking at the stages of growth and how people are growing.
Yeah.
So stage 3 has employees up to 34.
Okay.
Stage 4 has from 35 to 56.
Okay.
So most of the companies as an entrepreneur, stage 1, 2, 3 are entrepreneur focused companies. If you go back and really look at from stage 3 to stage 4, these employees who have been with them for stage 1, 2, 3, they don't want to change. But stage 4, if you change, and what I'm noticing in most of my companies who are going through the phase, they're getting a huge employee turnover. And I know that would be one of the requests most of my customers would be asking me.
Yeah.
So I was going back and looking at all the market and say, what can I do and what can I look at it?
Yeah.
And then I found Tim Clark is a guy who wrote a book called Business Model U.
Okay.
And basically he has a whole certification program. So I learned enough of it. So I went and got certified from him.
Yeah.
And then once I finished the certification, that is more for people to pivot their careers and pivot the things. That was his intention of doing it.
Okay.
But as soon as I graduated and I told him what I have done with it, it was an aha moment for him as well. He says, I didn't realize people can use it this way.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is all these people who are in stage 2 and stage 3, even before it is too late, I want them to put through the business model U. And the whole purpose of the business model U is help them to look at the value they're creating in a 9-step process.
Okay.
And where you are today, and take some of the value they have and transform it and create a to be model where how they fit into the stage 4.
Okay.
So that way.
And okay, so you're saying this is all about timing, really. It's about planting seeds with your employee base while you're smaller to say, as we grow, I'm going to cast a vision for where you fit in. So that's kind of the disconnect that people have, is maybe they say it's too big. I'm getting swallowed up. I'm disappearing. I'm no longer known by certain key people in the organization.
Yes.
Okay. So you're planting this. I love that. I love that.
And that is the unlearning and the relearning I have to do to serve my customers. See, my customers are very happy. I'm serving them and I have pretty decent revenue. I'm getting new customers. Everything is going great.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot sit idle. Like you said, if everything is great, you don't want to sit there. That's the reason why, good or bad, you want to change.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it and saying, what can I do? So now I have at least 14 of my customers in my portfolio that I can take it to at least 2-3 employees of those and help them out.
Gotcha.
So now I can save their knowledge and their, what I call the legacy employees who have been there for quite some time, who had their blood and sweat helping the company grow, that they're not disappointed in living.
Mm.
So now I can go back, take their existing value, transfer that into a new value and see how and where they can fit and still contribute in the new system, which is the stage 4, the stage 5.
Yeah.
So now everybody's going to be happy.
I love it. That's
and
great.
That is one of the biggest things from this unlearn and relearn. There was no, I mean, basically, in fact, one of them, but they say, basically, Raj, you have so much of experience. What is there for you to learn?
Yeah.
That is a typical question most of the youngsters ask me. And I said, there is always going to be change. Yeah. And if there is change, there is unlearning and learning happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we need to adapt. So that's the reason why this becomes so powerful. Mm-hmm. And every entrepreneur who can go back and master even the first one, unlearn, relearn, it is going to be huge for their growth.
Perfect. All right, next, number 2. So 5 fundamental habits for change leadership. Value past learning, but focus on today. So can you share an example of a client that refused to embrace this mindset? Do you have any examples? Yes. Did you have any clients?
So I don't want to give the name.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to say the...
We're never going to do that on this podcast. But just an example.
Yes. So this was a company way back in 2014-15. I was doing strategy planning for them.
Okay.
And one of the things we noticed was their margins were razor thin. So they didn't have enough margin to go back and reinvest in the business to grow.
Okay.
So strategic planning, year after that, we allocated some resources and stuff. The CEO was bought in, but he had a very, very strong board.
Okay.
And the board was not allowing him to do that. We have been successful for 30 years. We don't need to change now. We don't need to do this. And this was the company, August of 2021, went bankrupt.
Oh, dang.
And we predicted this almost 5 years ago. We've been trying to convince people and stuff. We have great people. There's nothing good, but the business model, the strategy piece had to change.
Yeah.
If you look at process transformation, people transformation, excellent. Great people, great talent, everything was great. But strategy did not change and they didn't have enough money.
Mm. There you go.
And you know what? I was surprised because they kept it very serious. But the CEO called me and said, Raj, I don't want you to hear from the newsletter or in the press or on the website. I am calling you personally to tell you. And he told me, please don't tell me I told you. So I said, no, I'm not telling you anything.
Yeah.
Because he knew that.
Mm. So that's a whole different question. We'll have to do another podcast on how to really roll out and change with a board. But that's powerful. What more powerful reason than really your organization is going to die if you don't change, if you don't value the past, but learn from it, focus on today.
Yes. I'll give you one example from my corporate life. The same thing, right? Live for today versus the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was working in the corporate world, I had a wonderful, wonderful secretary called Megan.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the name because bless her heart, she was one of the best employees I had.
Yeah.
You know what? Whatever I want, I just delegated.
Mm.
But the reality, when I'm running the company myself, you know what? I need to go back and print my paper. I need to fill paper in my this thing. I need to do the ink changes. I need to do this. I have to do every single thing.
Yeah.
Because today is different from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, I had the resources, I had everything.
Yeah.
Today, everything is me. I have to punch holes in my papers myself. I have to put binders together. I have to design everything else. If I said, oh, I was so good at it last time, we'll only be living in the past. And the future, this thing will become pretty bad for us.
Yeah.
So we always need to go back and say, what is relevant today?
Well, especially if you're going to jump into an entrepreneur role and maybe you've worked for a larger corporation, you need to go in and understand that you can outsource things. There's lots of things you can get support and all that, but there is going to be new learning. There's going to be things you have to learn because you have razor thin budgets starting out of the gate, and you're trying to get something going, and so you're going to have to do some things on your own. That's just part of it. I never knew how to record anything on my on a podcast or anything like that in my computer before I started a business, and I had to start doing that. So you absolutely have to figure those things out.
And Drew, I should thank you, because I was never comfortable being on a podcast. I was not comfortable being on a recording and stuff. Thanks to you, you said, Raj, you'll be great at it, and you encouraged me to be on this.
There we go.
I would have never done this. And that is the piece of it. I need to unlearn saying that I have not done that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So today, this is required. That is the thing. I need to be here. So I have been very successful in the last 15 years. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that today the same thing will be applicable.
Yeah. We talked about that in a couple episodes ago with, the home Babe Ruth's quote, right? The home run from yesterday doesn't help me in the game today.
Yes.
And it's the same thing is true with that. So, all right, rely on speed, but thrive on timing. So I love this. You wrote this in this article. According to folk wisdom, there's only one good day to eat a pear.
Yes.
Have it a day early. Anybody who's bought a pear and had it on the counter, you know this to be true. Have it a day early or a day late, and you will miss the best taste. Eat your pear on the correct day, and it will be delicious. So this timing thing, it was funny because I had read that, and I was thinking about even timing with your flight. We timed your flight, you get in the room, I picked up some food for us to eat, and then we were going to record the podcast. And the timing was perfect. You got here, I pulled up a few minutes later and walked in with hot food. So we got to enjoy hot food. We didn't waste any time. And the timing just worked out perfectly. So timing matters even on some of those little things. But I think we are all different with timing. So some are slow to make decisions, some are too early. And how does knowing yourself play into judging timing? How does kind of knowing your own personality style and being aware of yourself, how does that play into timing?
So it's very interesting you asked the question, because your profile, my profile, we are all people where we want to get things done now.
Yeah.
So that is, most of the entrepreneurs, they come with that kind of it. We call them dominance, because they have the dominance piece of it. They want to get things for them now. Everything has to be now.
Yeah.
That is great. But if you really look at some of the aspects of it, like if I would have said, no, Drew, let us not do it at 1 o'clock today. Instead of that, let us do it at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I have to take an earlier flight. I have to do a lot of things. I have to rush through a lot of things. And I don't think we would accomplish what we can.
Yeah.
That's a simple example from today. But if you look,
I would have been stuck in traffic for a long time instead of coming at 10 or 10:30, 11, to make the drive here. So it worked out.
But if you look at your strategy piece of it,
yeah,
one of the things I always tell people about thing is basically don't neglect your September. Always I tell my customers to have a plan, 1 year and 3 year plan, first draft, not first draft, but almost like a final draft in September. I don't want you to rush faster.
Yeah.
Or don't want it to be slow. Timing wise, September is good because you can monitor and see what happens in October, November, 4th. You have one more quarter.
Yeah.
And make some fine tuning at the end of the quarter.
Yeah.
And timing wise, that is ideal because I can look at people, I can look at strategy, I can look at process. All of that comes and falls in place at that time. If I let us say wait until Thanksgiving and then I'm rushing through and
the holidays are there and everything. Yeah.
Haste makes waste.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back and really don't come up with a good plan and you're making haphazard decisions and the whole 1 year plan might be at risk.
Yeah. Well, and from a communication standpoint, when if we're doing a training or giving a talk, a speech or something, the sooner you can get that outline prepared,
yes,
then your brain works in the background. I don't know what it's called. I just know it happens, right? you're driving down the road and you're thinking about that talk that you're going to give and the point that you're making, and then you see something, it's a great illustration, you add it in, and then something happens and you remember a story from years ago and you add it in, and it just puts layers and layers and layers. The same thing is true with the strategic planning. When you know where you want to go and you give yourself a little more runway to get there, now you're adding more layers upon it. And so what you're saying is that your timing is going to get better by just giving yourself some more time.
Exactly.
Okay.
So one of the biggest thing I noticed from entrepreneurs is in the sales process.
Yeah.
When I'm hungry, like I go back and think of my 2009, 10, 11, where I was desperate to get new business.
Yeah.
For me, everything was speed. So customer calls me, I send them a proposal. Just immediately. It's as much, there is no tomorrow. I used to do that.
Yeah.
But the customer is not in the same speed I am.
Yeah.
So what I was doing is I was putting a lot of pressure, time, and using the speed. And I would be missing, like you said, I was missing some information. I was missing some finer points, or I was missing adding value.
Yeah.
Thinking that speed was very important. But for the client, he needed to go back, review that, understand that, digest that, and come from it.
Yeah.
So for me, the learning curve for it was, instead of being speed, I always go back and say, hey, what would be the ideal time? When would you like it? And then plan accordingly to that. Now the timing was perfect.
Yeah.
So speed was like, from my assumption, saying that the faster I give, the sooner I'll get an answer. No, they're not working to my time. But if I clarify that, then the timing will be perfect.
So asking good questions to find out proper timing,
Yes.
whether it's with a client or anybody else, just asking, what are you considering? What is the timeline that you have in your mind? I mean, it's a great leadership question when you present a project and you say, this is what I'm wanting done. When do you think you can have it done by? And they can, either the time fits in your timeline or not. Yes. But when they decided, it's even better because they feel empowered that they gave an appropriate timeline for that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's kind of how you think about timing. I like it.
So one warning I would give for all the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Is when we are in a tight financial situation or a difficult kind of a situation, we tend to go back and focus more on speed.
Okay.
Remember, the customer is not working at the same speed.
Gotcha.
So work with your timing is based on your client, not your need.
Yeah.
That mind shift has to happen.
That's really good.
Sales, marketing, entrepreneurship, that is very important.
It's based on their need. I love that.
Exactly.
That's great. All right. Take action and move courageously in the midst of uncertainty. Take action and move courageously in the midst of uncertainty. Well, we all work in uncertain times. But what do you say to the leader that has maybe acted courageously on a few occasions and it didn't work out? They're a little gun shy. They're the cat that touched the stove and they go, I don't want to do that again. I spent a bunch of money on a marketing plan or on a marketing person and I'm frustrated because I didn't get any result out of it. I don't want to move courageously anymore. I don't want to move boldly like that.
But here, the question you always go back and look at it is, there is something missing in that.
Okay.
What do you mean? The missing part of it is, did they know the direction they want to go? Were they putting the bets on the right things? That is what it is. I go back and talk about the pandemic and the whole PPP money, right?
Yeah.
So I have a client. Basically, there was a lot of uncertainty about where the business would go. And especially he was getting 50-60% of the revenue coming from healthcare industry.
Okay.
So you don't know with the whole pandemic thing where it would go and what it do. So he was at a point where he was not sure which way to go.
Yeah.
But he had the PPP money. And directionally, he said, you know what? Directionally, when I have good people, I can always grow.
Yeah.
It is a matter of 1 year or of 3 years. Since I have additional cash to be there and I have 20 years to repay the loan, I can play with it.
Yeah.
We don't know at that time interest rate and all. I didn't look at it, but at least I had 20 years to repay the money.
Yeah.
And I already got the money from PPP. So he went back and hired people. So directionally, he knew that I want to grow the company. I need good people. And that's the reason why I'm hiring.
Yeah.
So he was not sure with the business growth, would it sustain the cost or not? That is more of thinking and planning.
Okay.
So in your question, when you were saying, Raj, I burnt my hands a few times.
Yeah.
They need to really reflect and say, were they making the decisions directionally the right thing?
Okay.
So I'll give you a current example as we are going right now.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, everybody's talking about recession is 3 months away.
Sure.
Now, basically, we are talking in November of 2022 and 23, everybody's predicting that there would be a recession.
80% or 85% of CEOs. Yeah. Fortune 500 CEOs.
So that is the uncertain situation.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at it, some of the companies, they're doing cost cutting and saying, I'm going to cut marketing, I'm going to cut sales, I'm going to cut this and stuff, and they're becoming conservative.
Yeah.
And there's some people saying, you know what, this creates a lot of uncertainty, and I always thrive doing uncertainty and stuff, and they're directionally putting some efforts and resources and stuff.
Yeah.
So the way I'm looking at it from my personal business, I'm going to share my thing.
Yes. Yeah.
I looked at it and said, there are a lot of going to be small businesses who will be in a fix of whether I need to go back and do something or cut down my cost.
Yeah.
So I created a complete new program called Entrepreneur Growth Alliance. And I want to bring alliances of this group, which is very, very cost effective for the small businesses.
Yeah.
They have a mastermind together.
Mm-hmm.
We are launching that in January.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose is uncertainty. But we are not going with uncertainty and shaking away, but uncertainty is there. We don't know if it's going to help. I don't know if people are going to work with it or not. But the people who join, they will have a much more advantages because the same service is coming at a discounted cost because they're being part of a mastermind.
Yeah. It's shared among this broader group.
Shared among it. So the people are sharing the same cost among themselves.
Yeah.
So instead of one company spending X number of dollars, 10 companies are together working and sharing the same expense. So that way now they have a strategic advantage. So uncertainty is there, but directionally we are going.
Yeah, you can almost say clarity overcomes uncertainty. I mean, if you have, there's no guarantees with anything.
Exactly.
But if you have clarity, you have a greater chance of overcoming the uncertainty of the marketplace because you're thinking through. I mean, we did this. We had these conversations during the entire pandemic, and I know for my company, I made a strategic move to focus on coaching. I was all training,
yes,
like nearly 100% training, very little coaching. And I had to make that pivot because I knew that, hey, if companies are going to spend money right now, it's not going to be in group training. Yes. It's going to be at the highest level. It's going to be their top leaders. They're going to invest at that level. And so I need to focus in on that. And so that's what I began to do. And I got, it worked fantastic for my company in doing coaching. Now the training has come back slightly, but I'm still predominantly coaching in my company. And so, we make these changes, these strategic bets based on the clarity that we have in that moment. And so I hear what you're saying, that when we have clarity about where we want to go, it almost makes it easier to be courageous.
Yes. Once you have the clarity, being courageous is very easy. And at least directionally you can go that way.
Yeah.
So you might be going back and saying that I want to accomplish X.
Yeah.
And if directionally it doesn't work, directionally if you're going the same way, but instead of X, you only reached X minus Y, then that's perfectly fine because you are still closer to the goal.
Yeah. And if you're well, and here's the other thing. Maybe there's not a recession at all. Maybe some strings are pulled, and meaning that, I know there's certain levers that the government can pull, and I think they've pulled them all, but I don't know. Right? I don't know what's going to happen, yes. And none of us know what's going to happen. This is the post-pandemic economy, right? So it's very strange,
uncharted
territory. So if no recession happens, or it's a very mild one, if you made decisions in alignment where ultimately you want to go, there's no loss.
Exactly.
You didn't lose anything. You're continuing down the path. You just maybe get there faster now because there's not a recession.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that.
That is very, very critical piece of it.
That's good. All right. One more question here, and we'll close this one out. So remember that today's best will not meet tomorrow's challenges. So what is your method of continuing to get better? What would you advise a small business owner listening? What should they do to continually get better every single day?
So what I tell people is basically, even if you improve by 0.1%. See, one of the great things about James Clear, the author of the Atomic Habits,
yeah,
he talks about it. 0.1% every day.
Yeah.
In an year, you can be better by 38 times.
It's pretty good.
It's very good.
Yeah.
And that is the power of it. So what I tell people here is, if you are as it is, the standards are increasing every day.
Yeah.
Expectations are changing every day. If you don't change, today's best is not going to be good enough for you for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like today, one of the common things Amazon has done is, if you have Prime membership, all shipping is free, right?
Yeah.
But when I go to some of the other sites, as soon as the shipping, I don't want to buy it.
Yeah.
Because it has
You've
been
wasted
there.
so much time too.
Exactly.
And then to realize that, oh my goodness, it's $15 to get shipping or whatever the case is.
So tomorrow's challenges are going to be very different than what you have today.
Mm-hmm.
So now if you look at it, especially Walmart, they have 2-day shipping free for
Yeah.
some of the things in stock.
Yeah.
So that is the only way Walmart could go back and increase their e-commerce to compete with Amazon.
Yeah.
So we might want like it or not, but the market is changing, and based on that, we need to go back and change for the tomorrow's world.
That's good. So what about, so how do I change? Do I, read books? Do I read articles? Do I have, I mean, I would say listen to this podcast, but isn't that a way to continually grow? Make yourself aware. I watch YouTube all the time and get information on there from people reading articles to me or listening to people who have an expertise in a certain area that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And they share about how they solve the problem. I might not fully adopt it. I might not agree with it, but I go, hey, that's one perspective on it. Let me listen to another one and another one. And you're continuing to grow in that way. Any other ways that you would suggest?
For me, I'm a little more focused on it.
Okay.
So I am always taking the time and said, what are my goals for 1 year and more, or goals for 3? Again, I'm putting on my entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
There are personal learning. I'm not talking about that learning, but I'm talking about from a business perspective.
Yeah.
From 3 years, what do my clients want? What are the products and services I want to do? And what can I learn from it? The simple example I gave you, right? The business model you.
Yeah.
Nobody would care if I had the certification or not.
Yeah.
But for me, I wanted to go back and get 100% confidence that I'm certified. I can do it very well so that I can take it and add value to that.
Gotcha.
So will I go back and get a lot of customers for it or not? That is irrelevant. But I have a solution for what I predict some of my customers will have a problem.
Yeah.
So I went and learned that piece of it.
That's great.
The second way, the podcast. Basically, I want to reach as many entrepreneurs as possible and share what I have.
Yeah.
I can never go back and talk to one-on-one and share this information.
Sure.
Thanks to your ideas, thanks to everything else that you were talking last year and stuff. Now we are making an attempt to do the podcast and the videos and share our knowledge with anybody who was interested in learning.
Yeah.
So that is the piece of it from a change perspective, because there is a need and our goal is to go back and share. It matched up.
That's good.
So all of what I always tell about learning and growing and changing depends on what goal you are and where is the gap to reach the goal.
That's perfect.
That is where I would say everybody should focus on.
Yeah, and that's a great way to kind of wrap up what we've talked about with the 5 fundamental habits for change leadership. That's great, Raj. Thank you for answering all of my questions. If you have questions, we have an email in the notes below, and you can shoot in your question. We would love to answer those and add value to you. Raj, do you have anything before we go?
One of the things, again, the thing is, as an entrepreneur, constant change. So keep on learning, unlearning, and relearning.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we'll talk to you guys next time, and you have a great day.
Thank you.